So, Sarah, it's lovely to finally meet you. And I've been reading about all of your work, which sounds like superwoman, frankly. We all aspire to
Not
be
really.
and never feel that we are. But particularly what's lovely is you clearly are doing what so many women do, running a business and running the family and, taking care of your children. Um, and you've got two, is that right?
Yeah, two girls.
And how old are they?
They are 9 and 12.
Okay. So it's pretty full on. And
Yes.
when did you set up the business?
Well, it was back in 2015 when we first launched. So they were both preschool age at that point. And the motivation really was so that I could stay at home and be with them and do something around them. I took the opportunity to take redundancy at the end of my first maternity leave. And so I had a little bit of breathing room and a second child to keep me busy, and realised that doing my own thing was my opportunity to have that flexibility and work everything around the family rather than the other way around.
So, and we talk a lot about sustainability, and in fact, part of that is how do we make our own lives sustainable? So, for you, that switch around from, and remind us what you were doing before.
So I was a marketing manager for a global bank. So there was quite a lot of travel involved. We were based in Yorkshire, head office in London. Yeah, lots of trips down to London. And my husband's job at that point also was working away during the week. So the childcare really was down to me.
So, that life as it was no longer sustainable if you wanted to be in
No,
any way a hands on mum.
no. I mean, to be fair, the nurseries weren't open long enough for one of us just to do it. So it would have been a compromise on both our careers to, because literally, the nurseries don't open for the hours that we had been doing previously. So it made sense when that opportunity arose to take it and see where it ended up.
Which is a brave move. So many of us aren't sure when we come to take an opportunity like that, or one stares us in the face. Do we do it? Do we not do it? But what I particularly love about what you've done is, as I said, it's sustainable for your life and your family and your sanity, probably. But
Yes.
your whole business is based around sustainability. So tell us the story of that.
Well, it started because when we moved house, we did quite a major renovation, and we had to rent because we took the roof off the property, couldn't live in it at all. Um, so we rented something that was close by and small as possible, just to get us through that period. And I quickly found out with two little ones that the washing machine was on all the time, and I hadn't especially noticed it in our old house because we had the washing machine far away. But when you're in an enclosed space, it was on all the time, and we had no outside drying space, so therefore the tumble dryer was on all the time. Started feeling guilty, and so I threw in the plastic spiky tumble dryer balls to speed it up, but then found that they were ridiculously noisy and I couldn't have it on in the evening, during nap time, or anything like that. And even when anyone wasn't asleep, it was just irritating. So I Googled it and found out that you could make them out of wool. And where we are here, there is actually a wool shop down the road, and floor to ceiling, all different wools. And British sheep are extremely varied, and there are all the different breeds have different texture wool and colours. It's all undyed. And so I started playing about with the different wool options that were out there and making them to look like the different breeds of sheep that the wool had actually come from. And soon I was getting requests, can you do one like my sheep Babs? She's a Warbles, and I'd be looking up what a Warble sheep was and making one of those. And just sort of
And
went from there, really.
Just just to clarify, you'd also been doing a felting class, hadn't you? Like a
Yes.
crafting.
Yeah, so the local children's centre at the time, when I was pregnant with my second child, was doing like a learn, make, and sell course. and we learned wet felting and needle felting as part of that, along with vegetable printing and all kinds of different crafts. And then we had a little marketplace at the end. And it was the felting that I particularly enjoyed with the wool. So I'd already kind of gained that skill and then used it to solve the problem that we were experiencing.
And was there one moment where all of this stuff came together? The crafting, the guilt about sustainability, the wanting to do something different as a working mum. Was there just, can you remember one moment, one epiphany moment?
Well, I think it's when, so I listed it on, the craft marketplace at Etsy. That was the
Yeah.
first place that we put it on. And I was setting it all up because, with my marketing background, I was all into that. And I'd asked, my friend had bought some from me. So I said, oh, can I put you through as my first order? Just so that, I'm not the shop that hasn't had any sales. And before I even had a chance to tell her it was live, I had a ka-ching from the store. So someone else had been my first customer that didn't even know me. So that was sort of when I realized that there was the demand there, and sort of kept going with it all, really, because I suppose until you put it out there, you don't really know that other people are going to value it in the same ways you might think it's a great idea. It's having that substantiation.
So were you like, did you have a vision? You were like, right, this is definitely going to work. Or was it almost a hobby at that point that you were curious about?
Well, I think I was always viewing it as something serious, but perhaps my husband didn't, so it was like, yeah, it was my little side hustle hobby thing that I was doing and what have you. And then it just kept growing. So that was where it got quite exciting, really, because it did become more, it has taken over. It is a full-time job now.
Yeah. And tell me about the product itself then.
So our best sellers are the 100% wool laundry tumble dry balls. They're made with British wool. We have the accreditation from British Wool on those, and they go in your tumble dryer and they bounce around. They separate the clothes so that air can circulate, and it naturally softens.
So how many
You don't
in?
then need dryer sheets. I would start with three for a small load, but if it's a bigger load, I chuck in, six or more, just how many I have lying around. So the more, the merrier, really. And the wool itself will draw out some of the moisture as it's going. And you can scent them with different laundry fragrances or essential oils. And then the heat from the dryer will also diffuse that scent through as well. So everything comes out smelling nice when you're not able to line dry.
Really nice. And they're what, the size of tennis balls, ping pong balls, footballs?
Yeah, a bit slightly bigger than a tennis ball. They're about 7.5 centimeters in diameter.
Okay.
Like I said, they're not stuffed with anything. They are just solid wool. And then we needle felt the little sheep face design on them as well.
And when you take it out then at the end of a dry, do you have to squeeze it or dry it? Or
No, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be wet. I just leave them in the drum for next time so that they're there, and then just chuck a few drops on before it goes on each time. Um, and then the other kind of quirky product that we have that's also sheep themed is the felted soap. So that is a lanolin bar of soap, which is wrapped in the wool, and you use it with the wool on, and it's like having a built-in flannel. Essentially, what you're doing when you're using it is continuing the felting process. So when you do wet felting, you use soap, hot water, and agitation. So as you are actually just using the soap bar on your skin, you use the soap even more, and it sort of it lost my words, but it uses every single last stud because it reabsorbs it back in as you're using it. So it lasts 6 months to a year, one bar of soap,
and
and you're
lanolin,
replacing all like plastic bottles
right?
instead of
And
shower gel.
lanolin then is a natural product that comes in the wool.
Yes,
Is that right?
yeah. So it's like the greasy coat that's on the fleece of the sheep. It keeps them it keeps the moisture off, and it moisturizes. It's similar in makeup to actually what is found on our own skin. So it creates like a barrier. So when you put it on, it'll moisturize. You'll feel the moisturizer going on, and then next time when you've been stood and wash your hands, you can kind of feel the barrier that it's created, so it stops you losing even more moisture out of your skin. So it's like a double whammy. And obviously, it's the thing that's naturally found on the sheep's wool when it comes off. It has to be washed to get the lanolin off of it.
But actually, you're making use of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have like a range of like hand wash, hand lotion, and also lanolin laundry detergent for when you're washing your woolen jumpers. Because as you wear like a woolly jumper or socks or whatever, the lanolin content starts to sort of fall away naturally. So this puts it back in and makes them feel more like new again.
Really nice. So you found a way, basically, of which we really needed, of exploiting the British sheep industry, because that's been struggling for such a long time. That farming industry.
Yeah, it's sort of shining a spotlight on British sheep, British wool, and making use of what's otherwise an underutilized and undervalued product. And it really shouldn't be, because it has so many amazing properties. Like, it's really strong, durable. It's obviously natural, biodegradable. It's sustainable in that they eat the grass and you get a fleece every year. It's actually really great for activewear. So because it will wick away moisture, it doesn't absorb the sweat or anything like that. It keeps you cool when it's hot, and it keeps you warm when it isn't so hot. Because people obviously always think of like woolly jumpers and things like that, but it isn't just that. It's the thin layers that you can wear with the finer wools. So we really should be using it more. There's so much plastic in our clothing that I don't even think people realise is in there.
So my friend is Truda Mostu, who is a vet who used to be on TV a lot here, and from Norway. And when I took my babies out there to visit, the first thing she would do is dress them in. And I'll be honest, I've always been a bit against wool because I find it itchy. So I never did dress the babies in wool, but she would dress the babies in these woolen undergarments, thermal undergarments. And the wool was so fine and so soft. And I'd say, well, you're not going to wash that, are you, by hand? All these baby clothes? No, we stuck them in the machine and they're absolutely fine. There it is, the done thing and the done way of keeping your baby warm. Never mind a really super thick fleece. You might need that outside or as a top layer, but actually, these lovely fine knit clothes that the babies were super comfy and super warm in it's just the automatic go-to there, which we've lost that here. If we ever,
because you can get wool underwear as well, and the first thing that springs into your head is a big fat woolly pair of pants, but they're nothing like that. They're really fine and sheer and can have lots of lovely lace on them and stuff. So it's just gone. We've just forgotten what we can do with it.
We've forgotten how adaptable it is, how many properties it has. And literally, my association is, especially when you say woolly pants, oh my goodness, you're like, is that going to itch?
I start itching.
Am I going to get a massive panty line? What's going on there,
Yeah, no.
So it's really interesting to talk to you about. It's like you're digging for treasure that's been there for so long, and we've just forgotten it was there. And what kind of
and also just the diverse.
What kind of reception are you getting from the British farming industry?
Well, I'm involved in the Great Yorkshire Show this year. I'm going to be modelling some woolen items on the sheep shearing stage itself. It's called Sheep to Chic, to try and raise a bit more awareness for what can be done, as with the products and the designers and stuff. So yeah, positive in general. We support the Rare Breed Survival Trust as kind of our charity. And they do a lot of work championing the actual different breeds and all of their heritage and backstories, because there's sheep up in up in the islands in Scotland that eat seaweed to, others like the Herdwick from the Lake District that have got very different characteristics in themselves. And if we don't, use the products that come off the back of them, then they're not going to be there anymore.
Right. What drives you? I mean, would you say, looking back now, oh, well, as a little girl, I was always a little bit obsessed with sheep? Or, was there any sign that sheep and sheep products would be something that inspired you so much?
Well, do you know, I have always loved animals, but the weird thing is, I was born in the Chinese year of the sheep, and I actually set the business up in a Chinese year of the sheep, just totally by coincidence. So I always think that's a bit that's fate or something
Yeah.
working there.
Really interesting. And you didn't
But no,
have
I'm not from a farming background. No,
nothing,
not from a
nothing. It
farming background.
all came together.
But I've always loved crafting. Yeah. I've always got a craft project on the go. I was president of the WI, so that element's always been strong, and I wanted to do something with it. And living where we do, but there are sheep everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So a real connection between home and land in that way came through a real kind of crafting
yes.
artistic way. And what about your interest in sustainability? Was that a relatively recent thing?
Now I think I've always had an interest in that from when we were at primary school. It was the hole in the ozone layer. It was probably the first thing in the back of my head that I remember being a big kind of campaign. On Blue Peter or something. And so it's always been there, trying to do the right thing, switch your lights off, walk instead of taking the car where you can. All just those small things add up, don't they? And that's really what I was trying to do with this. Like, we all know that line drying your clothes is the best for the environment, for your clothes, for everything. But there are some occasions where you can't. And in that scenario, it's about using the best thing possible or trying to reduce the number of plastic bottles that you take in the shower. Going back to the old ways of doing things, I think there's quite a lot of lessons that we can learn from the past.
Interesting. Yeah. What, just out of interest, what do you know? Have you got any facts and figures on using the balls versus non using the balls in terms of timings of drying? It's a tricky one because it depends what you've got in your dryer, I
It
guess.
is tricky with modern dryers as well because they don't. Mine doesn't have a timing setting on anymore because it's a heat pump one, so it works out by the moisture content. But anecdotally, from what I've noticed and from the feedback that I get from other people, they've noticed a reduction in their drying times, and it definitely fluffs up your towels more. The other thing that it's really good for is, and this is recommended by the manufacturers, is the padded jackets, down jackets,
Yeah.
to put it in with those because I remember the first time I washed my husband's gilet and I got it out and I was like, oh, it's going to kill me because it looked like a pancake. And then you pop it in the dryer with a few balls and they bounce around, do their magic, and it comes out like new again. So they're the main benefits. And for me, also not having to use dryer sheets, and I don't use any chemical fabric softeners either.
A fabric softener too.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you're not having to add chemically, extras into your laundry.
I think
Just a bit of
as soon as, I mean, from my point of view, as soon as we become parents, our whole ability to be living in a conscious, environmentally friendly way is compromised hugely. Kids come with so much plastic stuff, from the
yeah,
food they eat to what they're wearing on their bum to, what they're playing with and what they're doing and
yeah.
eating, all of it really.
I know.
That we find ourselves, sometimes I think we get, that sustainability fatigue, if that is even a phrase, of I really, do you know what? I've got so much to think about. I can't even think about that right now. I can't even think, is this recyclable? I can't even think, what, like, we're going to walk. We're not going to walk. We're going to get in the car. It's just so much easier. Do you find that you get that, and what do you feel about that? Do you see it in the parents around you?
There is definitely, like, kids are definitely attracted to all of the plastic. Now they're a bit older, I say to them, think about the dolphins and the turtles. Do you really need that? And I think there is a piece as well that, with going back to laundry, that we do too much of it. And like, I think my kids now use the laundry basket almost instead of putting it away. So I'm trying. One of my things at the moment is trying to educate them that actually you could just put that back in the drawers. You wore that for 2 hours after school. It is not dirty. It might need hanging up or a bit of a spritz with something, but it doesn't need a full wash. So it's just educating them when they get a bit older to just do their bit a little bit more and to help out. And yeah, it's so hard. It is so hard with kids, especially when they're younger. But as they get older, I think, it's about trying to educate them into how to do things in a sustainable way. Not, choosing the big pot of yogurt rather than the little squidgy pouches, for instance, or, like I said, not washing your clothes just because you wore it for 5 minutes after school.
And that idea that, I mean, I've always lived by that idea that all of us can do something. And in fact, based this whole podcast around that thought that all of us can do something. None of us are going to be perfect, and we shouldn't expect to be. And all of us make compromises somewhere along the line, but we can all do something every day, even if it's just a little thing.
Yeah.
Do you think, and some would challenge that idea, that it's too late for us doing little bits. We're too late. How do you compromise that? How do you, what's the word I'm looking for? How do you make peace with that idea that these are huge issues that we're dealing with?
Well, I guess the thing is, don't make good the enemy of perfect. We can't all be perfect all the time, but that doesn't mean that you can't still try and be good. I say that we can still try, and actually, people power eventually does change things. And I think that's where actually small businesses have kind of got the upper hand in a way, because like, we are in general closer to the customer, I think. And if we can respond to what people want, and then the bigger companies see that it's possible and working, then things will change and economies of scale will start coming in, to help. Because some of the generally, one of the problems with eco and sustainable tends to be that they're more expensive for people. And so it's about proving the customer demand so that we can get change on a bigger scale. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does make sense. And, and it's a really important point, because now more than ever, our desire to spend a little bit extra on organic, or to take a little bit of more time, we have a financial desire to turn the heating down, for example, which is a great thing for, in terms of sustainability and our aims ecologically. But I think so much is going to be even more compromised by our current crisis, in terms of our cost of living. Do you see that having an impact?
Possibly, yeah. One of my other expressions is, you buy cheap, you buy twice, though. So I do try and think, yes, it is worth getting a slightly better quality, or more well-made items, so that it's just a false economy sometimes to buy the cheapest thing. But we're not really we've lost the habit of like saving for something that's worthwhile as well. So I think that's something that might have to come back into being a bit more popular and mainstream. That we don't have to have everything now. It's worth waiting to get the thing that you really want, rather than compromising on your values.
That's another, going back to go forward, that's another quite old-fashioned thought and idea. And we talk so often about mindset, especially with regards to sustainability, that kind of idea of buying better quality, buying less, but better quality, and something that will last longer, that we don't have to replace all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And if we're supporting our local industries, then that will eventually help the economy as well.
Yeah, Absolutely. And I mean, let's not forget the other thing that you're doing is adding a spark of joy, because this can all get a little bit like, oh, okay, right, I'm going to do the next right thing, the next right thing, then, I'm going to be morally good, but equally you're adding in that spark of joy, which I love.
Yeah.
Can you describe,
Yeah.
for anyone who hasn't seen them, describe what I mean?
Well, so I think it's because they look like the different sheeps. They have a little face, little eyes, and some of them have multiple horns, and so they've got their own little personality that looks up at you. So I've had comments back from customers saying that, they're on the shelf and they guilt me into doing my laundry that day, or, I just walk in the room and they make me smile on my way out the house, that kind of thing, because they are just a friendly little face to keep you company when you're doing your chores.
It's so hilarious. And how have you managed to keep, so you're upscaling, as we know, you
Yeah,
started this at home, right?
I did in the little flat.
Tell me how it grew
um,
and what the journey was like.
Well, so it started. I didn't have my own website to start with. It was literally all just on Etsy, and I did like a school fair here and there, and then decided that the Great Yorkshire Show was going to be my first big event, and that was great because obviously I met lots of different sheep farmers and people with different breeds to give me new ideas, and yeah, did a trade show, got stocked in a few shops, and it all just kept growing. Then we had a little bit of a blip with the pandemic, as everyone did, but the website was up and running by then, so that was a strong period for us in terms of sales and making people smile when they were stuck at home. Um, and now we have our own little workshop, which is in what was the old International Wool Secretariat building, where the wool used to come in from all over the world. So that feels really appropriate, and it's a 5-minute walk from my house. So I think that's another sign that I'm doing the right thing in the right place. And we took on an apprentice who is now a full-time employee. So we've got a little team growing, and I have various helpers that help out as well alongside. And yeah, we're stocked nationally and internationally and all through the website now. So yeah, that's the
And
thing.
that's
When
all
you
been,
when you're
you
on
say 2015 was when you started.
2015 was when I listed the first product on Etsy. And then that was a sole trader, and now we're a limited company.
Okay.
So it's
And
kind of, we're going through all the different.
what was the point where you thought, yes, this is a goer? This is my job now. This is it.
Um, well, it was probably after being on Country File, because we were just so busy for so long after that. That was sort of when I was like, well, we need to outsource a bit more stuff. And then we totally outgrew the house, and needed storage and premises. So now, like, because now I'm physically going to work, it feels like more serious. Like
Yeah.
whenever it is still at home, you've kind of you're still putting the washing on and making sure you've got stuff for the kids' tea after school and what have you. And the school day is such a short day as well. It's half a day really, isn't it? Um, but yeah, so that differentiation kind of makes it more serious as well.
Yeah. So, what would you say to anyone starting? Anyone who's got an idea that thinks, this isn't going to change the entire planet. It's not going to fix the hole in the ozone layer, for example. However, it's a sustainable idea. You know, can we do that to sustainable sell? Is that enough of a message to people to get them to part with their cash?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that is something that's growing stronger since when I first began. Um, it's a movement that's growing amongst consumers. So I absolutely think there's a place for that. And I would say to anyone starting out, just have a go. Start small. Find a platform that you don't have to put a big investment in to begin with, and see what the customer reaction is. Test and learn. Ask for feedback all along the way. My kind of, we call them the flock. My kind of follow us, on Facebook and what have you, are really good at giving feedback and, making suggestions as to what they'd like to see. So put it out there, test the water, and, see where it goes. Grow it organically.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting hold my hand on some of your projects and getting some some of those sheep in my tumble dryer. At the moment, I'm not using it too much, but it's still. And also, wait till you get teenagers. They can't be bothered to hang it out on the line. So I go upstairs and I say, "Wait, our laundry's upstairs. Is the tumble dryer on? Who's put the tumble dryer on?" I'm like the tumble dryer police in our house.
Yeah.
And I think at least if I could
Yeah.
get them to throw some sheep balls in with it, that would help our cause. Because and
Yeah.
also, my children spent a lot of their lives in America, so the tumble dryer was just on. Like then, there wasn't even a thought of don't use the tumble dryer where we were. To be fair, for most of the winter, your sheets would have frozen solid if you put them outside. But so I think, like you said, none of us are perfect. We all have to use it sometimes. And if we can get a little bit of joy, a little bit of sustainability, a little bit of we're making a bit of a difference. And I love the way that this whole sustainable ethos has even been down in the way that you've grown your business. You haven't taken massive leaps and jumps and it's been sustainable growth right the way through. So it seems to go right through everything you do.
Yeah, we do. We just try and, with all the decisions we make, we don't use plastic bottles. We source from within this country for everything that we have to buy in. So, yeah, it is important to stand by your values.
And you're making
You've got to want to do it. Yeah,
and you're making a bigger impact now than you were just as one individual. So it's a power.
Yeah. And I've you wouldn't have predicted it when I first started off necessarily. So I just wonder, like where it's going to go next. It's quite exciting because it's not over yet.
It's really exciting. So remind us now, where can we get a hold of or have a look at your products?
So we're online at littlebeausheep.com, and it's beau like the French for beautiful.
Okay. So we'll all be taking a look. And thank you so much. Keep growing your business. Keep going sustainably. And we look forward to lots of different products for you. But so much appreciate the time to chat because I know how busy you are. And look forward to seeing. Are you going to post pictures of the what is it, Sheep to Chic at the Yorkshire show?
I will definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, it'll be sunny like it has been because, that will just make it so much better.
You know what it is you're wearing?
I think. Well, I've got a woolly jumper and a tweed jacket.
So they haven't put
there
you in
two of the items.
Then.
I'm hopefully not going to be modelling lingerie now.
Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Really appreciate it.